Welcome, I'm the Kaiju no Kami, and can you believe a year has passed since my last Halloween month? I am really surprised at this. This year has flown by quick. But with that said, let's get Halloween month started as I kick this month off with my top 10 favorite horror movies of all time. But do note, this is horror movies strictly, not comedy horror, which is for a list for another October.
Number 10.
Kickstarting this list is a movie that in a series that was planned from this point forward to be an anthology series every Halloween. And it's a shame this didn't happen because it could have been such a great idea and something unique and special the way Tales from the Crypt is. But it didn't happen because it didn't feature Michael Myers, and that was Halloween 3.
Halloween 3 was vastly hated when it first came out just because it didn't feature Michael Myers. That is a shame because what we got here is a really unique movie centered on Halloween itself with the use of the mythology surrounding it. Tom Atkins and the legendary Dan O'Harely star in this little horror tale about magic, witches, and robots in a strange world that is accompanied by a truly impressive soundtrack from both Alan Howarth and John Carpenter. The synth score enhances the atmosphere of the scenes it surrounds in an impressive array of mood and horror. Oh, and it also features one of the most catchy tunes you will have stuck in your head for days, months.
Wait, no, actually it's forever. Forever.
8 more days to Halloween, Halloween, Halloween. 8 more days to Halloween, Silver Shamrock. 8 more days to Halloween, Halloween, Halloween. 8 more days to Halloween, Silver Shamrock.
Number 9.
The next movie on my list is another movie that is centered around Halloween and the mythology surrounding it. This one is a real treat to watch, and that is Trick or Treat.
This anthology of terror is a truly unique horror film and one of the best ones that directly deal with Halloween since probably Halloween 3. It features a few different tales of terror that interconnect with each other, as we get stories that take place at various times of the night and have a tendency to take place during the same time. Watch as we get to see a girl be put into a hairy situation as she needs a date to a party, and a strange, grumpy man meet the unexpected, some ghoulish kids thinking it's cool to play pranks on the disabled, and the principal that likes to sharpen his students' minds. The end result is a truly spectacular film that adds a new movie monster to our beloved gallery of ghouls, demons, and monsters.
Rumor has it that there is a sequel in the works, and I hope it's true, but at the same time, I hope the sequel is good and worth the wait, because there's nothing more than a sequel that ends up being absolutely terrible.
Number 8.
I grew up on the classic Universal horror movies from the 30s, 40s, and 50s, and as much as I enjoyed Dracula and Bela Lugosi's performance, I always felt like there was something missing about it. Well, the next movie on my list kind of fixes that, even though it does kind of add in its own bits of hokiness, and that is Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Part horror, part romance. This tale stars Gary Oldman as the iconic Dracula in what is easily one of the most faithful adaptations of Stoker's original novel. Nearly every character from the book is present here in their original incarnations, as opposed to other adaptations that tend to combine characters. Keanu Reeves and Winona Ryder may not have been the best casting choices, but it is the story and cinematography that makes their shortcomings easily forgotten. This is one of Francis Ford Coppola's best films and easily his most beautiful. The costumes are absolutely breathtaking, as is the remarkable score Kilar has graced us with. This marvelous adaptation is not only pleasing to the ears, but is also a visual magnum opus. It may not be the most perfect film around, but it captivates its audience with its relatable vampire titular character.
Did I also mention how visually pleasing this movie is? I mean, one of my favorite scenes is when there's a train going by, and up in the sky, which is a nice sunset orange sky, Dracula's eyes appear. It is so gorgeous to watch, and even the theater scene is awesome. Definitely check this out if you haven't.
Number 7.
The next movie on my list is one that not many people consider a horror movie, and I'm not sure why when it's got a giant monster that eats people. What else do you need to prove it? Well, I guess it's because people are thrown off by the bright and colorful setting since it takes place in July, one of the hottest times of the year. And I don't know why. Because certainly Jaws is without a doubt a horror movie.
To some, this may not be a horror movie, but it is definitely one. It features a monster that is killing people, is full of suspense, jump scares, and is very atmospheric. Therefore, it is a horror movie, just a bright and colorful one. And that is what makes it stand out. It is very bright because it takes place in the middle of the summer and colorful due to the water. It also helps that the characters are well written, lovable, and there are a lot of truly amazing conversations that occur throughout the film. Add on John Williams' powerful, wonderful score, and you have a film that makes people think twice about going into the water in the real world.
Seriously, if that doesn't make this a horror movie, nothing does.
Number 6.
I am a sucker for anything that deals around Egypt, and Egyptian mythology is my favorite mythology of all time. As such, Universal gave us a classic movie that dealt in mythology, and that is The Mummy.
After giving us one of the most definitive performances of all time with Frankenstein, the phenomenal Boris Karloff would go on to provide us with another definitive role, the great Ardith Bey, also known as the Mummy Imhotep. The Mummy is by far the greatest horror movie to be centered on Egyptian mythology to date, as it features everything from the wrath of the gods to ancient curses and reincarnation. This glorious masterpiece also shows that love can be eternal, as Imhotep stumbles across the reincarnation of the woman he loved thousands of years ago and tries to rekindle their relationship. With the addition of Edward von Sloan and David Manners, we are treated to one of the most interesting horror films produced during the golden age of cinema, especially from Universal's vast library of horror.
Ultimately, you can't go wrong with any of the movies in this box set, whether it is Frankenstein, Dracula, Creature from the Black Lagoon, The Wolfman, the original Invisible Man, and Bride of Frankenstein is by far one of the greatest sequels ever made. So, no matter what, these movies are great. It's just ultimately The Mummy is my favorite of them.
Number 5.
Adapting a book into a movie can be a very tiring experience because what do you do to adapt it? Do you just do an abridged version of all the main story? Do you do any of the side stories? Do you keep all the characters? Do you take out characters? It can be a very hard experience, especially if your author doesn't like what you did with it. Well, the next movie on my list is one just as this, but fortunately Stanley Kubrick gave us a masterpiece with this one, and that is The Shining.
And if there is one thing Stephen King hates more than anything, it is turning his grand book about a drunk being haunted by a hotel into a masterpiece of a film that outdoes the book in the fear factor. This Stanley Kubrick film goes deeper into the psychological aspects of this once violent drunk as the hotel ups his anger until he loses his mind with the desire to kill his family. While watching Jack Nicholson go mad may be nothing original or unexpected, it is the cinematography and music that really showcases the brilliant psychological breakdown that Jack Torrance is going through as the isolation he and his family graces.
Do not listen to Stephen King when he talks about this movie. He is just flat out wrong.
No TV and no beer make Homer something something.
Go crazy?
Don't mind if I do!
Number 4.
Alfred Hitchcock was known as the master of suspense, and he definitely earned the title. In his lifetime, he made 53 movies, and almost all of them are downright classics. However, this one was probably his greatest achievement, and that is Psycho.
Hitchcock was a master of suspense, but if there was one thing no one expected him to do, was for him to make a psychological thriller that ends up being one of the best horror movies ever made. The film kicks off with a truly realistic female lead with a lot of focus on developing her, only to remove her from the board halfway through in one of the most iconic sequences that has been redone time and time again. Anthony Perkins does a phenomenal job at showing a man broken by the love of his mother to the point where not all the lights in the attic may be working properly.
What else can I say about this movie to get you to watch it? If you have not seen it yet, you yourself are a psycho.
Number 3.
We have come down to the top 3 movies of my list, and this was kind of hard to order because all 3 of them are really good. They're some of my favorite movies of all time, so it was kind of odd to have to decide exactly what to place them in what order, but sometimes something has to be done. And in this case, John Carpenter's The Thing is number 3.
If there is one thing Hollywood is good at, it is remaking a film.
Why are you looking at me that way? I said Hollywood is great at remaking films, not that they're making great remakes. 2 totally different things.
However, unlike a lot of the Hollywood remakes out there, John Carpenter knew the best way to remake a film, which was to take a movie that was not only average at best, but also remake it closer to the original novella the movie was based on. In doing so, Carpenter gave us a truly outstanding science fiction horror film that builds up the tension as you and the cast try to figure out who may not be themselves anymore. It is all about the paranoia and the unknown, as these characters don't know who to trust anymore. Oh, and Albert Whitlock provided some truly magnificent effects work that stands the test of time, putting some of the most recent CGI effects to shame. If you have never watched this movie before, you are doing yourself a complete disservice.
I also want to give a shout out to composer Ennio Morricone, who has given a phenomenal score with this movie. He has done tons of movies for decades, and he finally just got recognized by the Oscars this year for his work with The Hateful Eight. The man has been doing movies since earlier spaghetti westerns like The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, so he definitely deserved it, but it should not have taken this long for him to get it. But regardless, good on him. His score in this movie rocks.
Number 2.
The next movie on my list is another John Carpenter classic, which almost became number 1 on this list, very close, until I decide one reason to go against it, and that is Halloween.
John Carpenter's original classic is one of the genre's defining films. His influences came from Psycho, Black Christmas, and Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but it was Halloween that really set the standard for slasher films of the 80s. Not only that, but for many years, Halloween was the highest grossing independent film of all time. It brought together an ensemble cast who would return for several entries of the franchise, especially the outstanding Donald Pleasence, who carried a lot of the sequels by his own merits. Add on top a truly chilling score that has become a staple of the series, some well-written, realistic characters, and a small body count that proves sometimes less is better, and you have yourself one of the greatest horror movies ever made.
Another thing that makes this movie so good is Michael Myers is evil just for the sake of it. He wasn't changed evil, he isn't humanized, he's a demon personified in the form of a man. And that makes this also outstanding and different from a lot of the others, which try to humanize their killers because there's some reason, some tragic history. No, he just did it because he felt like doing it, and that is awesome. Before I get to number 1, let's do some honorable mentions.
Honorable mentions.
Here we are with my top favorite horror movie of all time. What movie is it? Well, the reason I picked this is because some of the way it was filmed really makes it outstanding and puts it above the rest. Plus, it kind of defined a franchise that, while some of the follow-ups weren't as great, its sequel is kind of like The Bride of Frankenstein and is considered one of the greatest sequels of all time. And this movie is Alien.
2 years after Star Wars, Ridley gave us a unique and interesting concept, a movie about a haunted house. However, this house was actually a spaceship as the setting was in outer space. Its tagline was, "In space, no one can hear you scream." Talk about freaking brilliant. The ideas just didn't stop there, as Scott had master artist H.R. Giger design the alien architecture and inhabitants, giving us a truly iconic and terrifying species of creatures that would later become known as the Xenomorphs. This movie was chock full of suspense, terror of the unknown, and featured a fully lovable cast of characters you were able to grow attached to in their short time. No one felt like they were there just to die. Not only that, but like Psycho before it, Scott would also give us one of the most memorable, most parodied scenes in movie history.
Oh no, not again.
Hello, my baby. Hello, my honey. Hello, my ragtime gal.
It is also funny to think that the chestburster scene was actually done partially without even the cast knowing what exactly the scene was going to entail, giving more meaning to the characters' faces when the event occurs.
This masterpiece takes the best of both horror and science fiction and flawlessly molds them together into one of the greatest films ever made. If you have never seen this movie before, I don't know why not. Now, I will say I am going to review this next year and the rest of the series before Alien Covenant comes out, so definitely look forward to those reviews. So I recommend watching them if you have not seen these before. And I don't know why you haven't. You should have heard of them before. Okay, well, one argument could be you could be too young to watch them and your parents won't let you. So, okay, I'll let that slide. But the rest of you, why have you not seen this movie if you have not done so yet? Go and check it out right now, this Halloween. I've given you 30 days to check it out. You better do so. Until next time, bye.
It's 4 days to Halloween, Halloween, Halloween. It's 4 days to Halloween, Silver Shamrock. It's 4 days.